побачила, як летить ракета. І я почула це.
We're back with Pete Blaber here for the Ukraine SITREP, where we're going to go through what is happening on the ground and in the propaganda sphere. Pete, thanks for coming on, man, carving out some time today.
Always good to be here, Todd.
All right, so I have a lot of videos. I've got images. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you drive this. So you just tell me what you want.
Okay, well, we'll take up where we left off. Our last Ukraine SITREP, we did an update on a historic Alaskan summit, which is exactly 10 days ago. And historic because it's the first step in normalizing relations with Russia. And of course, establishing direct links between President Trump and President Putin, not just them, but also their advisors, I should add. And of course, immediately it was called a nothing burger by American globalist politicians. The global media, they all used the same phrase, and that was probably the most popular one used. But if you step back and look at it from a sensible human perspective, I'd call it one small step for the peace process and one giant leap for mankind and the de-escalation of the potential for nuclear war. So, amazing thing, but then we immediately had the reaction, right? I think the embarrassment by the EU. Zelensky immediately wanted to meet with Trump that next Monday, and all of the EU leaders followed, wanted to get their word in edgewise. It was clear. They wanted to put the brakes on this thing. We don't want to go too far down the peace road and let Putin and Trump get all the credit. But what they're really doing was just what President Putin warned about in his final words in Alaska, which was, this has real potential as long as certain people don't begin putting up obstacles and creating friction. And he was talking about the Europeans. And of course, that's exactly what happened. Zelensky came right out and said, it would be unconstitutional. I have no ability to cede terrain. It's in the Constitution. Amazingly ironic because he's unconstitutional. The Ukrainian Constitution says there has to be elections. You can't call off elections, yet he did. They're still called off. Martial law is still in place in Ukraine. So he's not willing to talk about the constitutionality of anything. And, again, criticisms of Russia, the mantra, it's all over the social media influencers saying Putin doesn't really want peace. The Russians are just appeasing Trump. But, many individuals who even on the globalist side have already pointed out that it's a major concession. If you understand what's happening on the battlefield right now, it's a major concession for Moscow to even be engaged in peace dialogue.
Because they don't really need to, right? They don't.
Exactly.
They're winning. Yeah.
Yeah, they're in the driver's seat. They're taking huge swaths of terrain, at which as we're going to get to a little bit later, they're not fighting a maneuver war. They're fighting a war of attrition, and they're being very successful at it. And that's probably the next thing we should talk about. The next, I'd say, major development that came up was a group of independent hackers. Many of them out of Russia, but they're world-renowned hackers that have hacked into all kinds of databases. They hacked into the Ukrainian database, And what they found was it was Ukrainian military chief of staff. What they found was leaked files that showed the Ukrainian armed forces have lost more than 1.7 million troops, both killed and missing since the outbreak of hostilities in 2022. And you know, what's the significance of that?
That is an astounding number, Pete. I mean, it's even bigger than we guessed, right? I mean, it's just a huge number.
Yeah, it is. And Todd, and so we'll never know until this thing's over exact numbers, but by what's been going on cumulatively all along and applying common sense, Moscow's estimate of Ukrainian casualties is 1.170,000. That's their official estimation. I believe it's around a million also. But the 1.7 million, remember, this includes killed and missing. So the latest update on desertions for Ukraine is they're losing 19,000 soldiers a month to desertions. So that's just what's recorded. And that comes out to a cumulative total of about 250,000 since the start of the war. I think you can almost double that. I think that number is closer to 500,000, which if you take the 1.7 million, subtract 500,000 deserters and missing in action, we have to account for them too. You come down to, again, a million, which is, as you just said, still a staggering number, and not like a number like my favorite quarterback threw for 500 yards. It's a number that should cause everyone to pause and to just have a moment of reflection on how serious this is and the unbelievable evolutionary, second and third order effects that this is causing to Ukraine and the world. And you and I, from the beginning, have said, we support both sides. We especially support the soldiers on both sides. And to know these guys are being fed into a meat grinder and knowing the purpose and how this war started makes it absolutely disgusting. But having said
what gets
that,
me, Pete, is that it gets me that the leadership of the U.S. government hasn't said, this is enough. You lied to me on the numbers. We're done. I mean, that's what I would do if I was president. Yeah.
But remember 2 episodes ago, what we talked about, I think the title was, President Trump is getting bad info from his advisors. And in fact, just yesterday, President Trump mentioned a new statistic updated from what he had said when we did that episode. He said he believes Russia's lost 1 million and Ukraine has lost 700,000. So he's still getting fed these false numbers. And of course, we see where that's coming from. And of all the things that anger me, it is the blatant propaganda by these former general officers. What's going on with Kellogg? We did an episode on him. I think you have a video.
I do.
How he can be called a peace envoy, I don't know. But these guys are feeding the bad info, and it's not funny. It's not saying bad info again on a sports team. You're encouraging Zelensky, who is already completely oblivious to reality and is already the most obstinate individual in this whole circle of individuals about negotiating what's best for Ukraine. But they're feeding him like he's a little kid. Keep going. It's okay. We haven't lost that many. So go ahead. Yeah, show what you got at Kellogg.
So this is Kellogg, I believe, before the meeting with Trump being briefed, I think. So I have
Yep.
two videos.
Coach Zelensky before he goes in to see Trump.
I've got a meeting with the president, the vice president, and
von der Leyen, the secretary, for this invitation and the 4 months of security guarantees. And this is what really, I think so. We will have time and then,
So that is that, and
Yeah.
this is Kellogg receiving an award this week from Zelensky. I think it was yesterday or today, which I found just disgusting. The look of he's obviously working for Zelensky. He's not working
Right.
for the people of the United States. But watch this.
Proud. For me, it's an honor to give this order to you. Thank you so much. Thanks to you, to the United States President. Best regards to him. And thank you for your support. And all your family, by the way. Thank you so much. We have to. We need peace. Thanks so much. My appreciation.
That's not a general officer. That's a sycophant.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
just bad stuff, man.
Can you even believe it? And he's advising, he's a peace negotiator. And again, we talked about his conflict of interest. His daughter runs one of the biggest NGOs in Ukraine that only makes money if the war continues. They ship in logistics and then ship them out to the Ukrainian military. I think we covered, again, 2 weeks ago, how all these politicians have daughters or sons or relatives that are hired or working for NGOs in Ukraine. Pelosi, Kerry, to name just a couple, but Kellogg, and of course, we know Hunter Biden took a job for $1 million a year and never had to even travel to Ukraine to get paid. He got paid for 3 years. So this is the money laundering. This is what we've discussed, why the dissolution of the USAID was such a critical step in ending this insane money laundering process, which is our taxpayer money. We, the people, are paying these NGOs outlandish prices, to include George Soros, to all but captain the overthrow of the Ukrainian government in 2014. So it's crazy, but he's advising the president. You showed him that meeting was right before Zelensky went in to see the president. So they're coaching him up, and they're coaching him wrong. He's continuing to show his obstinance, like we said, and the global propaganda network is in full swing right now, just trying to do whatever it can to not find peace. They're criticizing, they're saying it's Putin who doesn't really want it, but Putin and Lavrov have been crystal clear. Sure, we'll meet, and Putin just reiterated it yesterday. We will meet. We will agree to a meeting, but we have to have our advisors meet first to iron out even what we're going to talk about. If Zelensky's saying we can't cede terrain, and one of the number one demands by the Russians is acknowledgement of Crimea as well as Donbass, what could possibly happen if Zelensky and Putin got together? Absolutely nothing. So why would you do that? No common sense person would set up a meeting like that. But it doesn't sway globalists, including the EU. And they've just, with each passing day, fired up the rhetoric. I think you have the German defense minister arriving yesterday by train. He pledged, right here. I don't know if the story's there, what he pledged below. He told Zelensky, we're with you to the end. We will not abandon you. We will, there's nothing that can dissuade us from supporting Ukraine.
I can read the statement. He said, Putin must have no illusions that our support for Ukraine could waver. On the contrary, we remain the second largest supporter of Ukraine in the world and the largest in Europe. As finance minister, I also give a clear promise today. Ukraine can continue to rely on Germany. A ceasefire must be declared. In addition, reliable security guarantees are needed to ensure a lasting peace for Ukraine. We are closely coordinating our actions at the international level. Germany will fulfill its obligations. And I think I saw today that they declared they would provide $9 billion a year going forward, the German state.
Wow.
So
And
they
you
want
have
a
to
war.
answer
They want this war to keep going, man.
Yeah. Yeah, and why do you think that is?
They want resources. They don't want their economies. They want to say, look over here, not over here at our own economies where they, in their own culture, while they install tyranny. There's a lot of reasons, and none of them are good.
Yeah, no, I think that hits it on the head. There's no other explanation for their bizarre obstinance. And, you know, Putin called it. We're seeing it play. We're calling it out. Remember what we said last episode, the way to deal with propaganda, psychological manipulation is to say out loud what's happening, why it happens, and call it out. But that is, and the Europeans are doubling down. I think my assessment is President Trump's real success in these two meetings, and then the follow-on statements by J.D. Vance to include the statement by the Pentagon that we're no longer allowing them to use our long-range ATACMS missiles to fire into Russia. I think President Trump, his goal was to distance the U.S. to the point where we can completely pull out of any involvement with the Ukraine war. He's done that, and the Europeans seem to think, well, you know, if we just bluff, if we just commit, you know, maybe we can keep this thing going. Maybe Russia will, you know, throw in the towel because of our bluff and our bluster. But it's not going to work. And Russia is very much in the driver's seat. Again, the war of attrition, it's not understood by any of these pundits, and I'm calling out these ex-general officers.
This is a special report.
Knowing how to invest your money is harder than ever before. Dealing with stock market volatility, record debt, and terrorist attacks requires new thinking. At U.S. Asset Management, we can help you see the world more clearly so that you can move beyond the chaos and invest with confidence. Call us, visit us online, or drop by our office. U.S. Asset Management, helping you make better decisions with your money.
Your government doesn't care about you. That's why you need a medical emergency kit. It contains life-saving medications like ivermectin, Z-Pak, and antibiotics. Stock them before they block them.
Officers, I think we had a tape that shows a good example of how a war of attrition is fought versus a war of maneuver.
Yes.
It was the one. Yeah, let's just show that because I think it's very educational for our viewers, and it's a real ongoing combat operation as we speak.
Yeah, here we go.
This Russian Zaporozhye offensive operation was something like a trick. The thing is that before moving further, either in the direction of Zaporozhye region or in the direction of the village of Novopavlovka, the Russians needed to cross the river of Volcha. And that was a very difficult task for the armored forces of the Russian Federation because on the Ukrainian side of the river, there were lots of Ukrainian units of the same brigades, like 141st, the 5th Mechanized, 37th Brigade. So that is why the Russians launched their offensive operation in the direction of Zaporozhye just with one purpose, to force Ukrainians to cross the river of Volcha and to introduce their fresh forces on the Russian side of the river of Volcha. And the Ukrainians most likely did exactly as the Russians wanted. The Ukrainians redeployed their forces back to this pocket, restored control over these villages, and now these units and these forces right in front of the Russians on the Russian side of the river, which means that it will be much more easier for the Russians to damage or even to defeat these brigades here before moving further on the Ukrainian side of the river of Volcha. So a very interesting situation. It looks like a very interesting plan, but obviously as for now it's very early to make any conclusions. We need to wait for additional time.
So
So that is exactly what happened. And now these Ukrainian brigades, instead of being in prepared defensive positions with the river in front of them, are in positions that they have to now prepare with the river to their back. And, you know, every political philosopher from Sun Tzu to Clausewitz has had something to say about never keep a river or an obstacle at your back. So that's how a war of attrition is fought versus maneuver warfare. You're not trying to, force your people into a meat grinder, trying to cross a river which is covered by prepared defenses. You fall back and let them come across the river, fresh troops out in the open, where you can destroy them with Russia's superior artillery, glide bombs, drones, and whatnot. I was shocked. I confirmed that that report came out yesterday. I confirmed that did happen. It's still ongoing. It's a ferocious battle, but that's how you fight a war of attrition. And you're not trying to take terrain. You're just trying to attrit the enemy's forces to the greatest extent possible. And Ukraine is more than willing to step right into this trap, which is what it is. And again, they're advised by European and American generals who amazingly have not figured this out yet, as we saw with testimony by Coley.
Well, you know what, Pete? At some point, you have to think. At some point, Pete, you have to think they don't want to win, and they just want to allow their guys to die. I mean, they want to keep it going and continue to feed people into this. I think that's the goal, man. I mean, what else could it be? They don't want to win this.
Well, they're emotionally invested in this thing, and we pointed out last time, Bavoli was on the radio maneuvering brigades in the 23 counteroffensive, the disastrous 23 counteroffensive. He then went and lobbied for and got the ATACMS. That's what's so crazy about what's happened since 2022. And you and I didn't know this. New York Times broke the story that these American generals have been fighting the war, and it's not just something that to dismiss. And we were both in the military for over 20 years, and it's unthinkable to be commanding and controlling a battlefield in an undeclared war. And I mean, a battlefield unlike any since World War I and World War II. So not, this isn't the drug war or looking for terrorists in you pick the country in the Middle East that there's not active fighting going on. This is a war, and their advice has been bad. The advice has been top down, and it's the price has been paid for the senselessness by these great Ukrainian patriots who are out there trying to fight for their country, but aren't allowed to do it. So that was just a great example. I think the antagonistic stuff continues. A sabotage and reconnaissance group was just captured inside Russia. I confirm this too. It's not fake. I think we might have a video of that. And
which one was that?
It's the one where the two guys are interrogated and explain that they were trained in the Balkans by British and Canadian advisors.
I don't think I have that one.
Last one I sent you, I think.
The last one. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, hold on. Keep talking. I'll bring that up.
Yeah, and so it's just another example. I said antagonistic. Everything that happens over there, we need to apply it to ourselves. If a sabotage reconnaissance fully armed with explosives, the latest weaponry, night vision goggles, was captured in New Mexico or Arizona or Texas, and most of them, the 4 were killed, 2 lived, and then voluntarily explained how they got there and that they were trained by 2 countries, 2 other countries to do what they were supposed to do. I know what the U.S. would do, and this would not be my immediate reaction, but the U.S. would bomb the shit out of those 2 countries in some sort of retribution. That's just the way, we deal with stuff like that. But they think it's okay to do this to Russia. And I think these 2 guys also in the interrogation mentioned they were the ones involved in the train attack that blew the bridge, knocked the passenger train off the tracks back when they did the drone attack on the Russian nuclear bases. So serious stuff. And I guess just to take that to the next level, this is while Starmer is saying we have the forces ready to deploy and put boots on the ground in Ukraine to ensure their security for the ceasefire first and then a peace deal.
All right, I have this now, so I'll play this now.
Yeah, let's look at a little of it. It's
Громче.
Давидюк Роман Викторович.
Давидюк Роман Викторович.
Роман Викторович.
Дата рождения.
01.02.80.
Подразделение.
3-й полк ССО.
Дальше.
Давай от этого.
Фамилия, имя, отчество.
Жук Олександр Валентинович.
Как фамилия?
Жук Олександр Валентинович.
Дата рождения.
25.04.2002.
Подразделение.
3-й полк ССО.
Давай дальше. Без контроля не оставляйте.
Башку.
Голову.
Фамилия, имя, отчество.
Гатько Олександр Юрійович.
Дата рождения.
09.02.1995.
Подразделение.
3-й полк ССО.
Дальше.
Ребят, где скотч? Ребят, связать.
Yeah, that's okay, Todd. So they go on, they then show those guys, they take them back, they're in the interrogation room cleaned up, and they're very calm and just explaining that they were trained by Brits and Canadians. As you pointed out many episodes ago, Canada is all in on Ukraine. They have 1.2 million ethnic Ukrainians. I forget the name of the politician, the Serbic politician, Freeland, I think, in Canada.
Chrystia Freeland, she was the finance minister.
Yeah. So apparently, Canada, which has been in every war in our lifetimes, taking the high road, the white dove, is all in on this one and is training commandos to go in and kill Russians inside Russia. You just can't make stuff up. And again, the more important thing is to turn it around and ask the question: how would we feel? How would we react if that happened to our country? And I think everyone knows the answer. So, just to kind of sum up, we had this historic attempt at a peace process. We had real potential. It was immediately the kibosh was put on it by the Europeans and by Zelensky. No surprise there. And propaganda war is in full, propaganda industrial complex form. They're saying it's Zelensky who doesn't want to meet. They're tone deaf to what the Russians have been saying the whole time. No NATO forces in Ukraine. Thank goodness President Trump's reiterated that there will be no American boots on the ground for any kind of peacekeeping mission. But England has said they want to put them there right away to force Russia into agreeing to a ceasefire, as if Russia is going to shake in their boots that a brigade of Brits is on the ground in Kyiv or in Western Ukraine or something else. It's you can't make it up. The Germans with veiled threats, this continuation of antagonistic behavior, they don't want peace, and The answer to why that is unknown right now.
That's
I'm
the
sure it'll
question.
come out.
That's the question, Pete, because they can't win this war. So what are they really trying to do? That is, we still don't have an answer to that question. But there's a rabid desire to keep this going, no matter what. And why? You would think any leader of a country would want peace and not threaten his own people. But the Baltics getting actively involved against Russia, I mean, these are specks of countries. I mean, they can't fight the Russians, so it's just bizarre.
Yeah, and there's a great quote about the attempt by President Trump to normalize relations, and I believe that was a big part of the discussion. That's why Scott Bessent was there in Alaska with them, talking with his counterpart in Russia. Trump's, I believe, set on normalization of relationships with Russia, which is total common sense. We should never have stopped, but going back to that, and I think they see that, and they just don't want it. They want to maintain control instead. What's best for Europe, energy-wise, commerce-wise, they want to remain control over the populist movements in their country, and of course maintain their power. Which we're not the only ones, but the EU and NATO itself as organizations, I believe, are on their last legs. They've lost all relevancy, and I think we could speak for European common sense people if they could have a President Trump like figure in their country to clean it up and bring them back to normalcy and common sense existence. They do it in a second, but they can't. They're so deeply entrenched, and the censorship industrial complex has such a tight grip on every one of those Western European countries that it's going to take some real tectonic events to change that for them.
Well, it's happening a little bit in the UK, but they have to have the will to survive. If the men are not going to stand up for their women and stop them from getting raped, we're getting back to biblical, scenarios here. I mean, this is very simple. Either you want to survive or you don't. So either you protect your families or you don't. I mean, that's where they're at in the UK and in Germany and in France. I mean, the crime is out of control. They're literally just having their way with their women. I mean, this is like, it's like Viking level stuff, man. I mean, it's just bizarre. I don't know. This agenda is going somewhere and it's not good. So we're on the train. We'll see where it goes.
Yep, we'll continue monitoring, talking to our sources on the ground and reporting to our viewers. And once again, one way to deal with propaganda and psychological manipulation is to call it out, say it out loud why it's happening. And that's what we'll continue trying to do here on the Ukraine SITREP.
I've got one more point. Markachevo, which is I know well in West Ukraine. I was out that way after the invasion. I drove west with some sources. And that town has been kind of out of the conflict. It's made up of a lot of military, medical type establishment types in the Ukrainian forces. And that hit on the Flex plant, which was a missile strike right after the Alaska meeting, surprised everybody. And my sources are saying they were probably having some kind, because it was like a electronic plant. They make the Fitbits and stuff like that. And my sources are saying they may have been having some kind of like NATO meeting in the plant that Russia found out about. So, so the war is, my point is the war is coming to the West, which really has been spared for the most part. So that's going to be a change.
Yeah, we saw the way Lavrov reacted. NBC interviewed him yesterday, and they said, what do you think about the outrageous attack on an American-owned company in Western Ukraine? And he just very calmly explained, well, they were making basically the transistor boards for drones, missiles, and it doesn't matter who owns them. That's part of the war-making machine. And they're, so their purpose is to kill Russians. And Any industry that's doing that is, by all rules of war, is open to being bombed. And I'll tell you one final thing. One of my sources told me what is most amazing about these missile and drone attacks in Western Ukraine is the precision of them. You notice there's not apartment buildings being blown up. When you do see an apartment building blown up, it's usually by a Patriot missile that missed the drone. But the amazing precision that's happening, and on the development front, the Russians have developed an amazing anti-drone capability, which has really shut down on the front lines the Ukrainians' ability to do reconnaissance and anywhere forward of the line of troops. So these technological innovations keep coming from Russia. Ukraine has no potential to do it because their whole military-industrial base is pretty much gone. So they're closer and closer to being 100% dependent on outside sources for not just their equipment, but the money to buy that equipment. And when you take all that into account, you've got to put your historian hat on and go, how can these people be serious? How can they continue to want to support a country that has no ability to support itself and is wrong in what it's doing anyway, because they were put up to it by the EU and the Biden and Obama administrations in the US.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of like garage factories, if you will, there, but you're right. All the materials coming from outside. I mean, I think they're trying to be creative, but they don't have the resources. Anyway, it's all being put in from the outside. Anyway, thank you, Pete. And we'll be back next week. And thanks for all the help on the ground watching this stuff. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Sounds good, Todd. Take care.